the gut instincts driving Donald Trump's approach, according to his own aides, and what it means for American foreign policy. Now, this is interesting. Today, a senior White House official telling the foreign policy writer Jeffrey Goldberg at The Atlantic, the Trump doctrine is "We're America, B." That's the Trump doctrine. Now, this may sound ridiculous. It also may be revealing and helping to explain a kind of defiant outburst that Donald Trump just had at Canada, calling their prime minister weak and dishonest, as well as the approach that Trump is taking at times to North Korea, which has been all about attitude.
I think I'm very well prepared. I don't think I have to prepare very much. It's about attitude. It's about willingness to get things done.
How long will it take to figure out whether or not they're serious? I said maybe in the first minute. You know, the way they say that you know if you're going to like somebody in the first 5 seconds. You ever hear that one? Well, I think that very quickly I'll know whether or not something good is going to happen.
I'm joined now by a man who spent time in North Korea, Max Baucus, a former U.S. ambassador to China under President Obama, as well as a former senator. And back with me for the hour, as promised, our expert, Ambassador Chris Hill. Ambassador Baucus, thank you for being here. Is this real? Does that sound to you like something that any White House advisor would say? And do you think there's any substantive content to that description of a Trump doctrine?
Well, this may be a bit flip. I think the Trump doctrine is the Trump ego, frankly. It's too much Donald Trump one-man show. He doesn't listen to his advisors very much. He doesn't consult with other countries. It's America first, which is becoming America alone. And if that's the Trump doctrine, the United States is in real trouble. We have to work with other countries. Diplomacy is extremely difficult. It's not off the cuff. And frankly, I'm quite concerned that going into this summit, Kim has achieved 2 big victories. He's nuclearized the peninsula, and he's got this meeting. Trump goes into this meeting with nothing. And add to that, I think we're weakened now. Sanctions are going to be harder to maintain because Trump is meeting with Kim Jong-un.
Right. You're making a point that we've heard from other experts across the spectrum, which is that the meeting itself is supposed to be a reward. That's why other U.S. presidents have not given it up for, as you put it, relatively nothing. I want to also ask about expertise, because while aides are putting out these bellicose statements, there is a question about how ready this administration is to do the work of nonproliferation if they get that far. New York Times reporting Trump is the first president since 1941 not to name a science advisor. People who've participated in past nuclear negotiations say the absence of that kind of high-level expertise could put him at a disadvantage. Your view, sir?
Well, frankly, it is a deeper question. Having served in China, I can tell you that the Chinese are beginning to think that the decline of America is proceeding more quickly than they anticipated. And I think part of that is how they view Donald Trump. The disorganization, how he's conducting himself. The G7 is just an example. He's just a person who lies, he contradicts himself, and the Chinese just see this disorganization, this dysfunctional government, and I think that's a real problem. I don't know that Trump's going to get much out of Singapore. There'd be a nice sounding photo op, nice statement, and then we'll see. And all this comes down to trust. It comes down to verification. I don't know that Kim's going to trust Trump, because Trump changes his mind all the time. We can't trust Kim because he backs out, at least North Korea has. It's going to be very, very hard to maintain the kind of trust that's necessary in order to get a substantive, solid agreement, details that make sense, unless there's transparency and total verification.
And so is that it? I mean, this question to both of you, Ambassador Baucus first, though. What does that success look like? What does that verification look like?
It's going to have to be inspectors in North Korea, whether it's the International Atomic Energy Commission, it's American inspectors, Chinese inspectors. It's going to have to be inspectors. People are going to have to be on site in North Korea to see what's actually going on.
Absolutely. The deal that we had during the George W. Bush administration involved inspectors and going to unknown sites. And the North Koreans said, fine, you can see the sites you already know about, the ones we've declared, but no unknown sites, and that's where we had to pull the plug. But I do want to make a point. inspection is not a 100% game. So the idea you are going to have 100% metaphysical certainty about your inspection, you're not. What you're going to have is enough to be sure you know whether the other side's cheating. And so it'll be very interesting that the National Security Advisor, John Bolton, has these kind of maximalist ideas, and how that's going to work with Trump, who I don't think has maximalist ideas on this.
When you look at the past attempts, and when we were in commercial break, you were referencing Mr. Pompeo's discussion or gloss on those past attempts. I want to put up on the screen. With Clinton, there was this agreed framework, an attempt to halt nuclear activity for oil and electricity. Bush 43 had these multilateral talks. Obama, something called the Leap Day deal, halt nuclear activity for food aid, but basically failed, and that's why we're here. That's why we're still going for it. What is your view of what that record says? And does that record in some way imply that put the meeting aside, that Donald Trump is not aberrant or out of the ordinary in being a U.S. president, trying to get something going on out of Korea?
Look, I don't think it's a bad thing that he's trying to get something going on. But for example, the Leap Day deal, the idea that they would get inspectors back in there in return for food aid, we didn't even give North Korea a peanut butter sandwich before they broke the deal. So we weren't fooled. We held back on what we had to give them. So it was unfortunate it didn't go forward, but we were not fooled by it. We didn't give them anything. And same frankly, for the deal we did during President Bush's time. We gave them increments of fuel oil. They gave us increments of denuclearization. When they stopped giving us those, we stopped giving them fuel. So we never got ahead of the process where we were caught having given them a lot of stuff and not gotten stuff in return.
Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.